Okay, morning everyone, and thank you so much everybody for joining. We have a wonderful guest with us this morning, and I think this subject is something I'm really excited to learn more about. I think it's that kind of little black box of revenue management that a lot of us try and sort of delve into, and I know Thibault, you're going to give us a lot of background on it. I'm going to give Thibault a very formal introduction in a second, but actually what someone asked me to do, which I probably wasn't aware of the other day, was that a lot of the people coming online today don't know an awful lot about us. So just to kind of give you an introduction to say why we're doing this. My name is Adrienne, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Right Revenue. So we are actually a forecasting and price automation software solution. So we are a full revenue management solution for hotels. So it's our job to help hotels maximize their profitability with great strategies. And we're very grateful to work with some of the leading hotels in the UK and Ireland. So it's our company ethos to help and support hotels in all things revenue. And I guess from the start of the pandemic, we ran a series, for those of you who don't know, we ran a series very early on called Ask the Expert. And then we had a little bit of a break in the middle when everyone was very busy over summer. But once we found that hotels were getting ready and ramping up to open, we really wanted to do something to help hotels to be revenue ready and to make sure that they were ticking all the boxes to prepare for that. We've already had one series, which was just before Christmas, and that was about tech and engagement on the sort of the tech landscape. This series, this is our second one, and we're very grateful for Thibault to be joining us on this. But this series is very focused on a lot of operational revenue management, so about events and GDS and weddings, and Thibault's going to talk to us about food and beverage revenue management as well. As we go through the presentation today, I'm going to throw in some links that I hope will help you. We have access to a couple of documents. We've got a great article that Thibault has also on his website, which I'm going to give you access to. And also to a couple of free reports that we're giving out to the industry. We call them Project Calculate, and that's to help hotels understand how to price a room and how to price the rates to ensure profitability. They're given away free to the industry as our gift. But I think what's really important for me to make everyone aware, Thibault was giving up his time today completely free of charge. We've done a lot of prep coming up to this, and we're very grateful for his time today. And it's just our way of saying thank you to the industry and supporting you at this time. So Thibault, I'm going to, if you don't mind, sort of read because I'll never remember it all. So Thibault Catala is the founder of Catala Consulting, a firm based in London specialising in revenue management for hospitality, big and small. No stranger to the hotel revenue management scene, having led the distribution and revenue management for several hotels across the world, such as Intercontinental in Europe, Four Seasons in Asia. He's been recognised for it, well done. In 2015, he was awarded the IHG Area Director Award for the luxury and boutique hotels in Europe, and in 2019 was recognised as one of the top 3 young talent of the year at HSM. And I can guarantee that is not an award I will ever win, being too old for that, Thibault. But listen, thank you so much. We've got quite a lot of people online, really interested to hear what you're saying. So I'm going to let you start. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We would love to hear your questions. So if there's any questions, Thibault can't see them coming in, but I can, so I'm going to monitor them for you. So the conversation gets really engaging when you guys ask questions. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. We are here to help and do whatever we can. So Thibault, over to you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Hi, Adrienne. Thank you so much for having me first. I think it makes total sense that we collaborate and we give back to the community and to the industry in these difficult times. And as well, I believe our company, your company, are sharing the same vision, which is to help the small hotel to play like the big one. And that's what we are motivated to do on a daily basis. So that's also this kind of presentation and session is my way to say thank you to this community, to you as well, and to give back as much as we can. So yeah, that's very important to help each other nowadays. So today, a very interesting topic. I mean, for me, normally we are focused on our rooms revenue management, but the F&B revenue management is something which is my second most interesting, most important topic in revenue management. So don't expect any kind of very advanced revenue management on F&B or anything. Very practical, very simple. That's something we really like I mean, for the last 10 years and even today with my company, to translate very complicated theories into very simple, practical, and actionable tactics. Okay. So if you're expecting something very complicated, that's not the right session. I will do another one probably. But yeah, so today is maximizing F&B, and again, no longer an ancillary revenue stream, but more an entire part of your revenue strategy. Okay. So the agenda of today, very simple again. So first, an introduction to restaurant revenue management, what it is, or we can explain this like in a nutshell. Very important on how to design and engineer your menu. If you didn't know about menu engineering, then that's your lucky day, because it's very, very important in F&B management. Managing the capacity of your outlets, and last but not the least, how to manage meal duration and reservations. Okay, so the 4 parts, very simple, straight to the point. And again, I keep repeating things every time, but if you don't understand my French accent, ask a question in the chat. I will repeat it, not an issue at all. Okay, cool, let's go. Boom, I start with very shocking data from the industry. Just to show you that it's super duper important that we support each other and we focus on the food and beverage area. Because if you just look at the UK restaurant sector, it dropped from 32.2 billion in 2019 to 21.8 billion in 2020. Okay. Yes, you have the pandemic, which has played a big role in this one, but it's not only this. You have quite a few challenges in the restaurant industry, such as a big shortage of labor. Ask anyone in restaurants if it's easy to find a good chef, to find a chef at all, and actually quite a big one. Increasing rent. So again, those kind of challenges are on top of the pandemic. Okay, so that's not something to replace, but just like on top of each other. Increasing rents, very slim margins. So because you have a lot of cost, and as well you have some limited revenue sometimes, so the margin are quite limited. Fierce competitions. If you look at the supply just in London, it's booming. So competition is very, very fierce nowadays. Rising labor costs. I'm not talking about Brexit, but I believe we should do another webinar just on this for the cost linked to Brexit. But rising labor costs is one main challenge. And last but not the least, which I believe it's a main difficulty nowadays, we see a shift of customer desire and behavior, which actually we have no idea how it will react in the next few months, few weeks, few years. But it will change for sure, and the industry needs to adapt. So many challenges, and the industry today is actually quite struggling. So very important to focus on the restaurant revenue management. So revenue management can help you improve your restaurant revenue in 2 different ways. The first one is to increase the number of customers, so increase revenue, increase the demand. And the second one is to increase the amount that is spent by each guest. Okay, and depending on the current circumstances, depending on the market performance or anything, I'm talking about rooms revenue management, but I'm also talking about restaurant revenue management. We have seen some increase of revenue between 5 to 15% just by looking at your data, monitoring your data, and as well as applying some ABC of revenue management. So it's very, very important that you look at this kind of area to look at optimizing your performance. Okay, and going back to the basic, an introduction to revenue management. So of course, I will not repeat the ABC of revenue management, which is on selling the right product to the right customer for the right price, to the right channel at the right time. It's too many rights. But if you translate this one to restaurant revenue management, is actually selling the right seat. So it changed to what we had before, selling the right seat to the right customer at the right time, to the right price, to the right channel, and for the right duration. And that's Sherry Kimes who said this, which is she's a god of restaurant revenue management. So next time I believe you should invite her directly on F&B revenue management. But it's very important to understand like room revenue management and restaurant revenue management what you have seen and the strategy and tactics that you can apply in rooms, you can actually apply it in restaurants. So very important to understand this kind of seat indicator and duration metric. Okay, are very, very important. So revenue management in restaurant is also selling the right amount of fixed and perishable product. So again, a seat, if you don't sell it today, you lose it. So it's very similar to room. If you don't sell it tonight, you lose it, and the next day, again, you have your new inventory. And it's most importantly based on your customer willingness to pay. Okay, because economic ABC, economic 101, the more the price increase, the less demand you have, because the willingness to pay is actually changing from one month to another. So it's very important to understand this kind of metric and to optimize the seat for the right duration. Okay. Now, and again, today, I believe that's one of the main points on revenue management. I would like to introduce you to the menu engineering, which is very simple. That's something we look at in hospitality schools. But if you don't know about it, I encourage you to have a look and to explore a bit further. Basically, the process of menu engineering is to begin with an evaluation of a popularity, the sales volume for each item, and the contribution margin for each item that you have on the menu. Okay, and all items you're going to create a matrix in 4 different categories. So the first one is the horses, which is high popularity and low margin. So in this case, if your item rank in this class, your goal is to create more profitable version of this item without decreasing the volume. Okay. The next one is a small little puppy, which is super nice, but we don't like puppies in this case because they are low popularity and low margins. So in this case, these items are not contributing to your profit enough. So consider removing the dogs from your menus, or actually find an alternative. But be careful if it's a menu items for specific few clients, such as if it's a kids menu, or if it's a vegan item, or I don't know, something which is very niche that is still on the menu. Okay, that's sometimes the case. But dogs, most of the time there's something wrong, and we need to look at a new alternative. The next one, it's based on puzzle, which is a low popularity and high margin. So if you understand that the matrix is based on 2 axes, we have the popularity of the items and the profitability of the items. So the next one is puzzle, which is low popularity and high margin. So in this case, you need to investigate what's going on, because you are still getting some good margin on this one, but it's not very popular. So maybe you need to review your rates, or maybe you need to push your staff to actually push these kind of items, because it's okay, you're doing good money on this one, but it's not very popular. So that's something you need to review. And last but not the least, put your sunglasses on, because you have the stars, which are the high popularity and high margin, which is the one which are going to sell almost by itself. Don't touch this one, because those one are your bread and butter in a way, because they do most of your profitability, and they are very, very popular. So even on your menu, put them not on top of it. Don't necessarily push them on top of your menu. Keep them as it is, and actually don't touch it, because that's the one which are driving most of your profitability. But this kind of process, I encourage you to do it on a regular basis, monthly basis, or even three months, or 3 months basis. I constantly review it, see your horses, dogs, stars, and puzzle, take some action, test it, and then adjust it accordingly. But this kind of process can actually yield some good improvement in your restaurant. And more surprisingly, you said, like, okay, dogs, the horse is very simple, but more than 60% of restaurants worldwide are not performing the menu engineering. And if you do it right, and if you do it regularly, and you take actions, because again, data without action is nothing. If you take action, you can yield some good profitability of between +5, 10, 15%, just based on this regular update of the menu engineering. Okay.
Wow, Thibault. So sort of 5-10% revenue growth if you adopt this very simple way of measuring. Can I just ask, from my point of view then, if I was putting this into a hotel and asking them to measure this, how long does it take? A month, 3 months, 6 months? So I guess the question actually came from, I heard a report this morning that McDonald's is now selling plant-based burgers in Switzerland for the first time. And I thought that's really interesting. I wonder how long they're going to test that before they release it out to the market. So if you were putting something that you'd never done before, like vegan options or whatever on the menu, how long do you have to give it to work out if it's a dog or a puzzle or a star or a horse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very good idea, a very interesting question. I would say like if you monitor on a monthly basis, and more importantly, if you look at the variances from one month to another, that's why you will start to see some pattern. Of course, if it's a new item on the menu and it's still a dog, then you have a reason behind being a dog. What I'm saying is like if you have an item which has been on the menu for 1 year and it's still a dog, there's something wrong. So give it time. I will say like 3 times, depending on the if you put a marketing campaign behind it, or if you put like a special menu to push the item, then you can adjust. So again, yes, it makes sense for the matrix, but as well, you need to understand like if it's a one-off, if it's something which will take time to be on the right category. And maybe a matrix and a menu engineering that you have done in March may be completely different from another matrix that you will be doing in December, because you have different patterns, different behavior, different menu. People are going out in families during Easter, which are not for the Valentine's Day, maybe, I don't know. But you will see that the matrix may be completely different. So do it and do it again and adjust and review it. And that's where I believe you will learn the most. You can drive 5 to 15% if you constantly do it, if you learn from it and you take action from it.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thibault.
Cool. So yeah, that's the 4 categories, and a menu engineering should look like this one. Very simple. You have your different items, number sold, the popularity based on your menu, the ranking order, food costs, and the item profit and contribution margin. Sometimes it's actually quite hard to identify the cost, the food cost of each item, but it's an important exercise to do to understand your contribution margin. And based on the revenues that it generates and your costs, you will be able to classify your items in different categories, profit category, high, low, popularity category, high and low as well. And based on these 2 categories, you can class them in different menu item classes. Okay. Yeah, that's something we can build on Excel quite simply. Okay. Another part of designing and engineering your menu, which is very important and can yield some good performance, is of course designing. So we have practical tactics that we can implement in your menu to review the way you present your menu. The first one is to use the visual cues to highlight the items that you want to sell most, such as in this case, if you can use different types of graphics to highlight an item, box, photograph, asterisk, chef recommend, which is a very good one. So use those kind of visual cues because it will catch the eye of your customers and push those items. Maybe it's you go back to the menu engineering and you look at which item you want to push, such as the puzzle, which are low popularity and high margin. You can put an asterisk next to it or recommended by the chef to actually try to push the popularity of those items. Okay. The next one is to again, maybe it's common sense for everyone, but it's not. I've seen some menu which sometimes are very complicated. So list order matters, meaning that the first few spots on your menu enjoy a level of importance that correspond to the position on the list. So if you put some star items at the bottom, okay, star is not the correct one, but if you put horses at the end, maybe if you try to put this item on top of the menu, maybe you will change the popularity of the item. So just think about the order, put them in a correct order, and yeah, the item just above the last item, that's something which has been shown in different studies. The items just above the last item in the list are the most ignored. So not the last one, not the first one, not in the middle, but the one which are just above the bottom are the one that most of people don't order. So yeah, just think about this one when you design your menu. Okay.
Sorry, Thibault, can I just ask,
sure.
the chat there going on that you didn't know about just asking about the sign. So I'm not sure if everyone was maybe just hearing kind of the best place to put the things that you want to sell and where to put the things that you're probably not going to get orders. Would you mind just maybe doing that tiny little section again for me? Would that be okay?
Sure. Okay. I mean, you mean on the list order matters, meaning like when you design your menu, to put the items that you want to sell actually at the top or in the middle of the menu, but don't put them at the bottom or just above the bottom.
Okay.
If it makes sense. The one which are just above the last items are the one which are completely ignored by your customers. So think about this when you design your menu. At the bottom, it's okay. Top and middle is fine, but the one which are above the last items are ignored.
Wow. Okay. Really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of psychology on the menu items and the menu design. There is a lot of literature online, so I encourage you to have a look on this one. But yeah, it's very interesting. If you look at what was the name of this one? It's like the tricks that people are using to put different price on the menu. So meaning like they put the most expensive at the beginning. So you are like, you open the menu, you look at the prices and you're like, wow, that's super expensive. 1,000 for a bottle of wine. Wow, that's super expensive. And then you see 300 for a bottle of wine. You say, okay, this one is actually more reasonable. And then you see like 250 on the one. Okay, 250 is actually quite cheap. Okay, but if you start with the 250 and you put the cheapest one, the 250 will seem very expensive, and you will go for the 40 bottles. So it's very like playing with the psychology of the customers.
Yeah, I actually read something about that a little while ago, that is the price that you want to pay, if you want your customers to pay, if you always put that in the middle. And then they'll go, okay, well, I'm not going to order the most expensive one. I'm not going to order the cheapest one. So they'll always order the one that's roughly in the middle.
Correct.
I think that's so clever. I find myself doing it as well.
Yeah.
Like a complete sucker. I get completely sucked into it. So
correct.
I really
No, it is. Cool. Another part, which is writing interesting items description. So again, this one, my French way of putting description can be a bit different, but try to humanize as much as possible the items and tell a story. Storytelling is a keyword which is super duper important in 2021. So think about it when you describe your item as well. Tell a story in the description. So a similar length for all items to fit in the layout of the page. Slightly different patterns will catch the eyes. So meaning like how do you say this? A pea soup with a bed of lentilles and lime on top, whatever. But try to tell a story in the description. That's what that will catch the eyes. Be aware of the eye scanning patterns because there's something on every menu which is a golden triangle. When people open the menu, they first look at the number one. You see on the screen. They look in the middle of the menu. Then they go on the top right, number two, and then they go on number three, and then they go back. So we call this kind of a triangle in the menu the golden triangle. So your eyes typically move to the middle first before trying to the top and then to the left. So meaning like you need to place your highest profit margin items here because that's where most of the sales are going to happen in your menu. Okay. And last but not the least, divide the menu into logical sections. You have the sweets, you have the starters, you have everything. Don't try to confuse everyone by putting everything in different orders, but divide it in different sections. Appetizer first, starter, and so on. Okay.
People, I have a question. Do you mind if I stop you? I'm just going to read it on the hoof here. How has the current trend of QR codes during COVID affected menu scanning? So do you think QR codes are here to stay, over and done with, or what's your view on that?
Yeah, I love the QR code trend in a way. First of all, I believe this it's true, like you don't look at the menu the same way as you look at your phone and so on. So of course it will change the behavior and how we read it. Now I believe the QR code is an opportunity for us to be dynamic in a menu. So you can actually change your menu based on the different trend and different behavior. Something which is very complicated when you have physical menus. And even if you want to move to the next step, you could even do some dynamic pricing based on those QR codes and the dynamic and digital menus, which you couldn't do before with your physical menu. Okay, so I believe this kind of QR code have unlocked a new level of revenue management in restaurants, which before was not possible or complicated. But in terms of behavior, in terms of how people read it, yes, of course, that changed a lot. But still something to keep in mind when you design your menu. Okay. Hope it answers the question.
No, that's great. And something actually someone just sent me through just a text message saying, is it a good idea to put locally sourced on menus. And I guess that also comes on the back of a question or something that I learned about a year ago. I was at a conference in London and heard someone speaking, and they were saying that we're very lucky in Ireland. We don't have a lot to be proud of sometimes, Thibault, but apparently we have award-winning grass in Ireland. So if there's any Irish hoteliers online, and that Americans love to know that cattle are fed on grass, because apparently in America, most cattle are fed on corn. So that they feel that the beef is better here, the meat is better, and they're prepared to pay 25% more for that than they would at home. So I thought that was quite interesting. But do you agree with putting that locally sourced or organic or something like that on the menu to help tell your story?
100%. I fully agree with this kind of approach. And the same goes with the beers and the label that you put on beers. Studies have shown that if you put organic on a beer, it will increase sales by 40 or 50%. So yes, play with it. And for bonus point, if you put it in French, you increase your conversion by 70%. I've just made it up, but I think like French also sell actually. But yeah, for sure, like organic, locally produced, locally sourced. Yeah, that's really interesting, because there's kind of a sustainable trend where people are traveling in respect with the environment, in respect with the local community, and the more your menu is in line with this kind of behavior, the more you will sell.
No, I completely agree. And actually, my son lives in Bristol, and the restaurants there focus on that they get their food sustainably, so that things are brought in bicycles and without electric vehicles and things like that. So I think people are becoming more aware of that and make certain choices and decisions around that. I have two more things coming in, just to let is a handle. One of the questions we're going to cover, it's about KPIs, so I know that's coming next. But the lovely Amy, who I know, is I'm working on wedding menus for a client. I'm just wondering, would the same principle apply for designing wedding menus? Would you suggest including the individual item prices, even if they're included in a wedding package, just so the bride understands the value? Or do you have an opinion on that, Thibault?
Weddings menu are most of the time fixed, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure if you'll have any kind of decision power. So people will not choose items they want to buy at the weddings, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure if it will influence anything. I think it still applies the menu engineering and the ranking orders you put on the menu, but not the same as if you have a la carte and you will choose item by item. But the same principle are of course applicable to weddings menu. Yes.
And I've just actually got a text message in from my lovely friend Ian. And Ian, you're so right. And I know you well enough to know that I completely agree with you to say, I do think we need to be careful that what we deliver, I do think we need to be careful that we deliver on what we actually put on our menus. It's often tempting to write it in one way, but not be willing to pay for the extra produce to back that up. And I completely agree with you, Ian. If you're going to put it out there and put it into the public domain that you're providing something that is organic or local or whatever it is, I think we absolutely need to back that up. We cannot be telling our guests something that isn't true and that we're following through on. So I completely agree on that, Ian.
Actually, it's something which I've seen more and more restaurants putting organic, even if it's not 100% organic. So it's kind of a marketing gimmick, but sooner or later people will find it out and it will actually fire back. So I don't encourage you to do it if it's not organic or if it's not something like I make sure you are in line with what you are promoting in your menu, for sure, 100%.
No, I completely agree. Thanks for that, Thibault. Thank you.
Cool. Next part is on managing the capacity of your outlet. And I find this chart very important because you will, of course, any kind of restaurant manager wants to have 100% occupancy in their outlet every day, okay? But running at 100% or more every day is actually damaging more the restaurant than creating the optimum capacity and revenue for your outlet. So in this specific chart, they have seen that you are operating at under capacity if you're operating between 0 to 70%, 65% of your capacity. That's where you are under capacity. So you have like likely effects such as erosion of profit, lack of atmosphere. I don't know if you have already feel in a restaurant which was a bit empty and you were the only one sitting here. It was a bit boring. There was not much like going on. So that's exactly what it is. Staff become bored and demoralized. Service range from poor to excellent. So it's very, it changed quite a lot. And then you have the overcapacity, which is at 95, 90% and 1% and above. So I've seen like some people who are running much more on this one. Here, people are running everywhere, staff stretched to the limit, mistake and error occur. Now, if you make some error, customer become rude, angry and irritable. And the quality of the service deteriorates because you feel that everyone is stressed and so you just need to rush and so on. So that's not very cozy and you don't want to be there actually as a customer. The optimum capacity, and that's where you should be aiming for. I know today is actually quite complicated to say because those 70, 80% are very complicated, but looking forward, that's a sweet spot or any restaurant should be playing at. Around 70 to 90%. That's where you have the optimum capacity for any restaurant. You have the profitability for the restaurant. Staff are busy, don't get me wrong, but they're not overstretched. They still have time to have a chit chat with the guest and to create this kind of experience. So you have a good atmosphere, you have a good quality of service because they have more time to take care of the guest, and customer enjoyment, which is more important because if they leave a good review, then they can bring some new customers as well. So that's a very important sweet spot to aim for the 70 to 90% occupancy or capacity of your outlet. Okay. Now, if you look at the capacity, of course, revenue management is applicable to restaurants that have a higher demand than the capacity, because meaning like same as in rooms revenue management, we start to have fun in revenue management when we have more demand than we have inventory. We start to put some restriction, we have some yield and so on. Still, you can find some creative ways to generate demand in lower periods. But again, revenue management is very, very applicable when you can decide and choose which guests to take, which reservations to take, and so on, when you have higher demand on the capacity itself. Okay. Focus on extending your service capacity during the high demand periods. And I will show you the kind of back to basic of revenue management, but you start with monitoring and forecasting your demand. And once you know more, you can start adjusting your strategy. So focus on extending your service capacity during some high demand periods, and then start to slow down the space in a low demand period. In a restaurant, what is very important is to be agile in terms of mix of table size and types. So if you forecast accurately, you can decide if you put a table of 4, 5, 6 a group, or if you put for Valentine's Day only a table of 2 because you are only targeting couples. So it's very important to be agile with your restaurant. And then sometimes the capacity, and you cannot change the chairs or the table around, but having this kind of agility and dynamic approach to your table mix will provide you a next step in your optimization. And yeah, that's very important again to be able to change the layout and change the table mix in your restaurant.
Yeah, we've just had a little bit on chat here. A very good friend of mine, the lovely Vicky, was saying that she really takes the capacity into consideration when she's contracting tour groups, because obviously if a large tour group all come down to the restaurant at one time, you know, it not only affects capacity, but it affects the other people's experience in the restaurant as well. And then you leave yourself sort of wide open to all sorts of complaints as well. And I guess coming back to maximising revenue, if you've got tour groups in at a set menu of, you know, X amount per head and filling your restaurant, you're probably missing out. And Ian has just said, could one not use higher demand than you can service to move your guests to quieter periods? So yeah, I guess that's a really good point, Ian. But again, that's having that very joint up strategy through every department in your hotel to make sure that people know when there's going to be higher demand and quieter demand, and hopefully being able to move people around. But I guess revenue management in restaurants is, you know, it's very similar to revenue management in bedrooms. Yes. And I know we're going to go on to talk about that, about revenue meetings and bringing people from other departments in together. But really good point, Ian. Thank you.
Yes. And last but not the least, your optimal mix of table in your specific restaurant and hotel will change depending on different situations, different factors, such as how many staff you have, the kitchen staff and kitchen facilities, parking spaces. So I cannot tell you that that's the optimal mix of table. You need to see what works for you and what kind of factors will influence your optimal mix of table. And it may change from one day to another, from different day of week or weekends. So that's very important to be very dynamic with your layout. And what you mentioned as well, think about the groups that will come at a certain time, maybe push them to more quiet times, because not to interfere with other one. Put some restriction if you know that you will have high demand. Ask for a credit card in advance at the time of reservation if you know it will be very, very, very busy. And I know that's a very hot topic nowadays. I mean, before the pandemic when there were high demand, but yeah, think agile and think dynamic when you look at your capacity. Something which is very important, that's why I put a big slide on it. The unit of sale in a restaurant is actually the time required for the service rather than just the meal itself. So this notion of time is everything in terms of revenue management. So it's more the change of mindset when it comes to optimization of revenue in restaurant is about all the time itself. Okay. And when it comes to time, now we go to what we mentioned. I will highly recommend you to have a look at a main KPI in restaurant revenue management, which is a RevPAS, which is a revenue per available seat hour, which is you take your outlet revenue and you divide it by the available seat times the opening hours. So it will give you an indication of not only the revenue, but as well capacity and time notion within the KPI. Okay. So to maximize your revenue, you need to look carefully how long your tables are occupied. To go back to the unit of time that we just mentioned, so you optimize time in restaurant. And during peak hours, the meal duration, facilitating service more customer and enhance revenue. But customer who stay longer after the end of the meal may prevent some other party to join the table as well. So think this time of this kind of KPI to optimize revenue. And the RevPAS increase as the number of table turnover increase and the duration of the meal decrease. So we see some pattern with different day of week, with different periods, but start monitoring the RevPAS to understand what kind of behavior and what kind of pattern you have in your restaurant. Okay. And to add on top of other KPIs that you can start monitoring, I will add the seat turnover, of course, which is the number of customers divided by the available seats. To understand like how fast or slow the seats are changing. And you will see like, again, different patterns for different months, different periods. The TRevPAS, which is, I mean, that's a RevPAS but with a T because you look at your total revenue, but you look at your total revenue per available seat hours. Not only includes F&B revenue, but you can also look at other revenues that you include in your restaurant. So very important to look at this one. And more importantly nowadays, because I still believe that revenue management is shifting from revenue management to profitability management. The last one, which is a GOP PAS, which is a gross operating profit per available seat hours. And so not only a notion of revenue, but a notion of profitability, how much you are converting per seat per hour, and see the different trends. Okay.
Thibault, we have a couple of questions. I knew there would be because this bit is so interesting. The inner nerd comes out here, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions that have come through. Okay, so when calculating RevPAS, do you take all open periods of the day or specific service time? So if your service is from, let's say, 5 until 8 p.m., is that 3 hours? Or if you're open from 5 until 10, do you take the 5 hours? Which time period do you use when you calculate that?
I mean, it depends. For example, if an outlet is only open for breakfast and for dinner, I will just remove the one which are closed. So meaning like if you open from 8 to 10, that's 2 hours. And if you open from 6 to 10, that's 4 hours. So that's a total of 6 hours per day. So depending if you want to calculate your RevPAS per day, per month, per week, you will need to, so if you open six hours a day and you want to RevPAS by month, you will have 6 times 31 on the number of days that you have in a month to have the number of hours of 6 hours in your outlet.
Okay, so it's actually opening time rather than service time.
That's opening.
Yeah.
That's service time. it's difference between service time and opening time. When you can have guests, actually, because yeah, that's only when you can accommodate guests, not before.
Yeah.
So if people can show up at 8, yes, I will start counting from 8.
Okay, cool. Another question is, obviously this affects a lot of hotels or a lot of outlets at the moment. Do you include takeout rather than people sitting in your restaurant? Do you include takeout in the total revenue for calculating RevPAsh? So let's say that you had takeout available in the middle of the day, but there weren't actually people sitting in your restaurant. Would you include that revenue in your RevPAsh?
So I didn't get the word of what you mentioned. Was it a Scottish
So
word?
sorry, at the minute, obviously, a lot of restaurants are not allowed to have people sitting in them, so they're doing takeouts. And so,
takeout. Okay, takeout. Okay,
so
okay.
if you had, for example, takeout from 4 until 6, and then your restaurant was actually open for seated guests, do you take that takeout revenue as your total revenue?
I will take it. I will take it. Yes. For me, I like to compare the takeout revenue with my kind of other revenue in rooms, like a no-show revenue, because it's an increase of revenue without an increase of tax, and that's also why I encourage a lot of people, even if they don't need to have takeouts, meaning like they do a lot of in-room dining and in-room reservations, still to go for takeout, because it goes straight to profitability. You don't have an increase of tax. People are not sitting in your restaurant. They are not using a seat to eat in your restaurant. So takeout is straight to profitability. So yes, I will include this revenue into the calculation.
Okay, Una, thank you so much. The better way of describing that would have been click and collect. I'm so sorry that you're absolutely right. And yet, okay. Oh, yes, Samir has just asked, would you use the same calculation just for fast food restaurant, just for takeaway completely?
Because you mean like in this case, there will be no seats available.
Yeah, I guess it's just.
It's just RevPAR, meaning like it's a revenue per hour. Yeah, actually, it's a good one. Ooh, you have the revenue per hour, and you have one which could be as well revenue per chef hour, which is a dimension based on your kitchen staff. But we can go in all different directions. Again, this one is something which I made up a few months ago, which I found is actually quite interesting. To only look at the ghost kitchen and the ghost restaurant, which is only variable. It's the number of chefs that you have in the kitchen. So I was wondering if you could include this kind of opening hours with the number of chefs that you have in the kitchen and the revenue that you are generating with them, because the capacity and the seats capacity is not available. So maybe to replace the seats by the number of chefs in your kitchen.
Yeah, I think for me, when I do a deep dive into this, Thibault, for me, it's almost like ADR and RevPAR. So if you took your revenue by the seat capacity and hours that you're open, that's going to give you your RevPAsh. But then if you took your revenue and divide it by the number of people you had in your restaurant and hours, then you get a different figure. Like I was working it out with the hotel's actual figures this morning, and it went from around £52 to 55. So I think there's that very similar calculation that we do in rooms. I was just thinking actually within Project Calculate that I've put the link in for anyone who wasn't on the session earlier. Right at the beginning, I put some links in for you. But we have Project Calculate, which is our calculator tools. So I think it would be really interesting if we could design something up so that you guys can actually access that and have something that you can put those figures into, and we'll work all of that out for you. So let me get my head around that. And even if it's just a spreadsheet, we'll get something out to everyone who was here today to see if that helps, if that's okay, because I think that's really, really interesting stat. And I knew there'd be a lot of questions around this, Thibault. So I think it's a really interesting metric and really interesting measurement. So thanks for that. If there's any more questions, please feel free to keep putting them in. I hope we've answered everything there for you, Thibault, but I'll let you go on, and then if there's any more, we can wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, when it comes to KPI, I don't think there is one solution and one KPI that fits all. So you need to test for yourself, test a bunch of different KPI, see what is working, what makes more sense for you and for your operation, and then adjust and stick to one, okay, or two or whatever. But the idea again is to be agile, to test what is working and to adjust accordingly. So maybe it's RevPash, maybe it's revenue per chef hour, maybe it's not. Try different approaches and see what works best for you. Okay. So now, if you look at your RevPash, now you understand more that RevPash has a dimension of seats and as well as hour. You will need to look at optimizing your RevPash during peak demand periods, and you have different non-revenue management to manage it, which is first to change the outlet atmosphere because, for example, if you have background music, which is more a fast tempo, or the lighting or the interior colors of the restaurant may change the behavior of the customer and may reduce the meal duration. So meaning like if you're focusing on high RevPash, you need to accelerate the pace to make sure you increase the seat turnover. Or if you have a low RevPash forecasted, you need actually to increase the time spent at the table to make sure you have more probability of people spending more on F&B. So it's very important. Actually, I can give you a story on this one. I was working with a client, I think it was in the south of Portugal. And actually, when they knew they would be busy, they were actually changing the chairs. So they were putting like very non-comfy chairs, the plastic chairs in the restaurant to make sure like people sit, but they were not feeling very cozy. So they were eating very fast and they were leaving. While when they were focusing like a very low demand, they were putting some very comfy chair. People were spending more time at the table. So just changing those kind of chair was influencing the time spent at the table and the service. So I find it very clever. It's a small trick, but made a lot of change. The next one, and this one is a tricky one, but give visual signals. So not to be too pushy, but when you know that someone is finished with the meal, to start giving the bill in a correct way, of course, without being too pushy, but to remind the customer that the meal is over. And by busting the table or delivering the check or offering the valet service, that can be one way to accelerate the pace. And last but not the least, which is more about staff training, to aim to reduce the amount of time between different customers, to make sure everyone is aware of the SOP, all the staff is aware of what they need to do, and maybe the kitchen, maybe it's on the waiter. That's very important to reduce the amount of time between the different customers. Okay. And you were mentioning about the reservations, such as a tour series, such as a group, such as weddings and so on. When you look at taking reservations for your outlet, you have different decisions to take in order, of course. Again, back to Kima's, to Sherry Kimes on this one. But you need as well to understand the expected number of reservations and walk-in. And all of this, you need to gather data as much as you can. And sometimes it's actually quite complicated because garbage in, garbage out. So first clean your POS data, monitor your data accordingly, and then you'll start to understand like a number of expected reservations you can have on a Saturday night, number of walk-ins, number of different size of tables that you should have at different times. If it's more couple or family time at 5 and then couples at 7, then you will be able to change it. The type of restriction, such as party size or maximum dining duration, that should be used. That's something very important for high demand periods, New Year's Eve and so on. If you need to ask for a credit card in advance or not, because a lot of people actually on Saturday night, before the pandemic again, were shopping 5 different restaurants for Saturday night to make sure they have availability, but they will only show up to one on Saturday night. So, but they didn't cancel the 4. And to avoid this kind of situation, sometimes people ask for a credit card and to charge some cancellation fees as well. That's a common practice I've seen in London. Number of tables to set aside for walk-ins or VIP customers. Your regular guests are something very important to consider. And last but not the least, same in a restaurant, understand your overbooking levels. Because as I mentioned, people are shopping around and some people will not actually show up. So all of this should integrate your decision-making process when you look at taking a group, a reservation or not. Okay.
I had a comment there from
yes.
my lovely friend Ina. A lot of restaurants now have set seating durations that are made clear when you book, and restaurants are not shy to enforce them on the night. I think you're absolutely right, Ina, and I think we've all, as members of the public, got used to saying, here's my credit card, or expecting a call to reconfirm our reservations. And I think it's right that restaurants enforce that. Do you agree, Thibault, or do you think coming out of COVID we're going to have to be more flexible? I personally cannot wait to get back into a restaurant, not do whatever it takes to get back in, but I don't know.
I think it really depends on the demand for those restaurants, because if there is less demand than the actual capacity, then it doesn't make sense to start restricting, because I believe piss people off more than actually bring some new customers. So I believe there will be a phase of more a flexible approach. Same in hotel nowadays, we are only selling flexible reservations. People are looking for flexibility when they book a hotel because it's always changing. So I believe for restaurant will be the same. But if we have a big rush of like Adrien and Thibault rushing into a restaurant as soon as it's open, and you know that you will have more demand than actual capacity, yes, I will start to be more restrictive, actually asking for credit card and telling about the duration of meal and so on. So again, it all starts by understanding your demand and forecasting accurately. I know it's a very complicated exercise nowadays, but forecast your demand is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. And Una has just said that managing customer behavior, and setting expectations right from the start is key. Okay, no, that's perfect. Thanks, Thibault.
Cool. And actually, that's a perfect transition to the next slide, which is about forecasting. It all starts by having an accurate forecasting process in place. Even if you have three different ways of forecasting your demands, I would say like first is to use a third-party system, which will use artificial intelligence and machine learning, which will take into consideration like a growth trend, weekly fluctuation, seasonality, understanding the impact of holidays or any other events, even the weather impact. The restaurant has been showing some great correlation. And last one, which is the hotel occupancy impact, which is like all integrated into this machine learning from the third party. Yeah, we have quite a few on this one. The next one, and this one is something which we have been working currently on a project in Japan for some resort in Japan, where they have hired us to increase their profitability. They started with 0.5% GOP, and now we are close to 10-50% GOP. And one of the first things that we have done, of course, is media engineering and so on. But one thing we have done was to just look at increasing the accuracy of the forecast to then take some strategic decision. And we have found out that the correlation between the hotel occupancy and the number of covers in F&B was close to 1. So it was not 1, but it was 1, meaning that there is a high correlation. So every time you sell one room, you sell X number of covers. But it was very close to 1. So if you manage to forecast accurately your occupancy and the number of rooms occupied, you can actually forecast accurately the number of covers in your hotel restaurant. So this one is a very, very important technique. And last but not the least, something which a lot of people are very fan of, which is a gut feeling forecast, which is better than those things, so don't get me wrong. But just to understand, like we sit down like once a week and we forecast how many covers we'll have every day for the coming week, which is better than not doing anything. So again, I recommend to do like one of these three tactics and techniques.
Thibault, can I just ask, and I genuinely didn't know the answer to this, and I just said if anyone wants to email me afterwards, we can have a conversation. But within Right Revenue, we're obviously forecasting hotel demand and room demand. Do you know any other software systems like that specialize just in restaurant revenue management?
Okay, that's a big question.
I'm hoping not, because I'm hoping I'd find this lovely lady's pointed me to a gap in the market and I can just rule the world, but you know.
We have been working for a while in the F&B revenue management system ourselves. That's something which I still feel there's a big gap in the tech industry into the restaurant revenue management. So the short answer is no. The long answer is yes. There is a system called Avero. I don't know if you know it.
How do you spell it, sorry?
Avero.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm doing some free marketing for them. It's a US company, and basically what they do, they connect to your POS and they start doing some BI and recommendation based on your data. Avero it's a good one. I'm not sure about Tenzo, Tenzo, doing forecasting as well for a lot of different industry and restaurant included. But yeah, actually you have quite a few. And I will even tell you like a one step further, which is mind blowing, and I believe the future of the restaurant revenue management industry. It's dynamic pricing in restaurant. It came into hotel, it came into aviation, it came into different industries. It's coming now into the transportation with taxis and so on. I believe the next big disruption will be into restaurant, where depending on the time of the day you order your coffee at Starbucks, you will pay a different price. Not a big difference, but you'll start seeing some adjustment on pricing for based on the demand and based on the forecast. Yeah. I think you're on mute, but that's fine.
I'm on mute.
Yep.
Sorry, it was called what? Sorry, Thibault, dynamic
pricing in restaurant.
Okay, I'm just adding that into the chat there. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we have seen quite a few things, like monitoring the forecast of the different KPI. But even if if you didn't listen to anything, or if you didn't understand what I was saying until then, you can focus on this one. That will be enough for this session. But even more simple than what we discussed before, I would say like if you are just starting into revenue management at a restaurant, I will follow this kind of pattern. That's what I would recommend. First, look at your data and your POS. Clean as much as you can your POS data. And if you are closed nowadays, that's a perfect moment to do it. To review your items, look at your duplicates and to make sure you have clean data, because garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have clean data, you will not be able to analyze, monitor, and then take some strategic decisions. So cleaning your POS data is number one. Did you have a question, Diane?
No, I just had a text from my lovely friend. I was just putting it in chat. My lovely friend Celia, who works in the most amazing hotel in London, said they use Avero for F&B, and it does give really good data. So thanks for that, Celia.
Free marketing for Avero. But yeah, no, it's cleaning your POS data is super duper important. And sometimes when we take over some project and some clients, the first thing we do, we look at the data to understand like how difficult this project will be, because the cleaning part is it's super duper important. Have clear targets. So sometimes a lot of restaurant owners just open restaurants without any targets. Say, okay, we are going to make money, but have some targets. Even if you just like, okay, I'm just starting. I want to do 1 million this year. That's my target. And then you monitor your targets by regularly monitor your performance every day, understanding if you're going on the right direction or not. A simple calculation, which is like, okay, I'm on the 15th of the month. I've done 15,000 until today. So I'm doing like 1,000 a month. My forecast, my goal this month is to do 30,000. So I'm in line. Okay, so I'm doing 1,000 per day. If I continue the same trend until the end of the month, I'm going to hit it. But reverse the same. If I have 30,000, but I'm doing like 250 pounds per day, I'm below. I need to change something. I need to do something else. So just understanding your data, monitoring it, and every day sitting with your team, understanding like if you are going on the right direction or not, and giving some guidance to your team as well. Meaning like today I do like 500,000. I need 750. So guys, any upsell that we can do, push the sales items, push a coffee on every guest. So it's very important to engage with the team and everyone to be aware of the targets. Not only the restaurant manager, but as well the waiters, even the kitchen. Everyone needs to be aware of what's going on to make sure we all work in this direction. And that goes exactly with number 4. Include your F&B team in the weekly revenue meeting that you have, because revenue meeting is most of the time revenue manager with management team, and we discuss rooms revenue management. But start to include your F&B team. Start to include your F&B director. Even your chefs. I had some in my meeting when I was working in Le Grand Hotel in Paris. My chef was coming to revenue meetings, and we were discussing like trends, how much, what was our budget, what was our forecast, how much we had so far, why, what was the reason, what can we do, what can we find. So include as much team as you can in this kind of meetings, because it's creating the revenue cultures. And again, you can have the perfect, best revenue manager in place, but if you don't have the support of the team, if you don't have the right revenue management culture in the hotel, then it's useless. A good revenue manager should not be at his desk only crunching data in front of the computer. They should be on the floor talking to the front office, talking to the chefs, talking to the revenue manager. And I think that's super important to remove the silos, to work as a team, and to work towards a common goal.
I completely agree, Thibault. It's something that I speak about and talk to our hotels regularly, that you know, your revenue manager needs great technology to come out of the Excel spreadsheet and reporting hell that is revenue management, and actually just be your strategist. And as you say, bringing all of those departments together. And I think that that's what this series of Revenue Ready is trying to get across, that you need your F&B, you need all of your teams working together. So it's great to hear you say that a revenue manager should be looking at not just that room revenue and trying to work out, should I take that group, or, you know, will I take that piece of tour business? It's, what is that going to do to my kitchen? What's that going to do to my profit? What's that impact is that going to have in my bar and my restaurant? So I think that's super, super important in that joined up strategy. And when it does come from the top down, absolutely, that needs to be implemented the whole way through your organization. So I'm very happy to stand on a soapbox and talk about that all day. So thank you for backing me on that.
No, but you see, my approach has always been to translate very complicated revenue management theories into very simple, to make sure everyone understands, from the GM to the bellboy to everyone, because it's all about creating the right culture and not only crunching data and looking at what we can do to optimize. It's all about working toward a common goal. So yeah, makes sense. We're in line. And last but not the least, once you have all of this, once you have a better understanding of what's going on, start doing forecasting, engineering design, you have partial optimization, and the next step, if you want to go on the moon, dynamic pricing will be the next step on optimization. Okay, so I think we are just on time. Okay, 1 minute delay. But yeah, that's just on time.
Do you know what? If I talked less at Thibault, then maybe you would have stuck to time.
No, very interesting. But thank you to everyone who asked questions on this one. Was super interesting. So yeah, if you have any more questions, I would be happy to answer.
Well, listen, and please do just keep putting some questions in there in the chat while we wrap up. But Thibault, honestly, thank you so much for your time. This gentleman is very highly sought over, very highly respected in the revenue circle. So thank you very much. We're very, very privileged to have you. And as I said right at the beginning, Thibault does not get paid for this, and neither of us. These are all free and given up time and free. I did put some links in there again. There's a fantastic blog which Thibault has written and sent to me, so that's in there. For some of you who might be new to this series, we run them every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Next week, we've got the fantastic Kat McLeod talking about GDS, and that, you know, GDS has not gone away and what to plan for in sort of Q3 and Q4. And then we've got, I'm sure many of you know her, the legendary Heather Hart, talking about meeting and events on the 16th. And then the following Tuesday, we've got Kira Crossan talking about the changing needs of bride and grooms. So I hope that lots of you will join in on those. There's just a little bit, I'm just going to check that there's no fantastic session. So great. Some really lovely comments. I actually thought that was super, super interesting. You know, I suppose my takeaways were 5 to 15% revenue growth with just some simple adjustments to how you're measuring. That your optimum capacity in a restaurant, you should look at sort of 70 to 90%, which I thought was really interesting. And set your targets and measure, and bring those food and beverage people into your revenue management is super important. We will send out the recording to this. Thibault's very kindly given us permission to do that. So we'll send out the recording to everyone who attended today. We do have a strong charitable ethos in the company. So everyone who registered today, we donate £1 per person to our chosen charity, which is Lend with Care, to help people in developing countries start their own businesses. So we'll put that out on social media. We'll pick someone later on today. But Thibault, just a massive thank you again. Really, really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you over the last few weeks on pulling this all together. There's a huge amount of work goes on in the background in organising and delivering these. So thank you very much, Thibault. And I hopefully will see everyone next Tuesday. Yeah. Thanks again.
Thanks again. It was fun. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.